Welcome to this week's piece. This is a little lane cabinet. I have seen similar cabinets like visually from the outside, but I've not seen a lane version of this, and the entire inside is cedar lined. So I thought it was really cool. Those shelves slide out, which is just so functional. I think it is one of the coolest things ever. I do not love the blonde finished oak. It is not my favorite thing, so that's gotta go. Once I get these doors off, they will get a separate treatment, and obviously the hardware's got to be taken off. I cleaned the hardware and they're just spray painted it gold. I didn't show that, but I just, that's boring. So cleaned it, spray painted it gold. I started out using the scraper on this. It did fine on the damaged areas, but it was just so thick in the other areas that I decided to just go ahead and use a low grit sandpaper to finish it off, and that did much better. I did want to be really, really careful taking the finish off of this, because if somebody ever one day, or even myself, decides to redo this in the full mid-century style, because that's kind of the style that it is, I want them to be able to do that, and I don't want to damage this in any way so that they can't take it fully back to oak if they want to go blonde again or however they do it. I just want that to be an option for whoever ends up with this piece years and years down the road. So the whole body got moved up into 180 grit, and that's where I stopped so that I could stain. And then the door fronts, I actually just scuff sanded these with the 180 and left those for paint because those are going to get painted. The whole cabinet got a good clean and then a wipe down from all the sanding dust. And then I'm just going to give the two front doors. It was going to be easier for me to do this laying down, so I am doing a layer of white. It'll get 2 coats of this white, and then it'll be ready for our scene to go on the front. Now, while the second coat of white is still wet, I'm going to start my painting. I always start with the sky first, and I'm just adding a little bit of blue to the white, and it is going to add the background part of the sky. And then on the lower part of the sky, I'm adding some purple, and I want these colors to kind of blend up into each other. And then I will just mirror that on the bottom in case I want water. I ended up not doing water, but I like having it there just in case I want to throw some in. And then, of course, I added kind of like a hidden sun behind a bunch of storm clouds. And I just kind of wanted the beautiful sky mixing in with like a stormy sky to create this interesting contrast. And I love it so much. And then for mountains, I just start with a base of dark gray. And then I'll go through and add in the darker colors for the shadowed side of the mountain, and then some lighter colors for the highlights of the mountain. And then, of course, our trees. Gotta have the trees. For these, I just kind of start painting and see what happens. I almost never know. And for those of you who are kind of new to this, I only just started doing this. I don't remember what number this one is. I'll have to check, but this is probably like my 6th or 7th painting. And I literally just started by watching Bob Ross tutorials, and I did my first one on a dresser. That's where this all started. So if you are interested in painting something, I feel like I am not quite a teacher in that regard for this kind of thing yet. But definitely watch a Bob Ross tutorial and just try and mimic it on something, because you will be just incredibly surprised at how it turns out. I'm just blown away every time. I think it is an incredibly fun thing to do. And so for whatever reason this day I was feeling like just rolling hills. So that's what that got. Now back to sanding the cabinet. These front sections were curved in a lot like a frame, and so that's kind of what gave me the idea to do the painting on the doors. But so I had to use hand sanding for this part just to make sure I got all the finish off. And like I said, that blonde finish is super, super thick, so this took a little bit. Now, I don't typically go into Dollar Generals, but I happened to be in one this week, and I was like, hey, they have stain here. Why not try it? Because you guys know I like to try things. So I grabbed a couple of these. They were very inexpensive, and I mean, what's the harm in trying something, right? So the first one I tried was the oak, and it turned out to be just a little bit too orange for me. So I switched it up and ended up doing the walnut. So these weren't my favorite stains, but they also weren't bad either. So they worked, and if you're in a pinch, I think these are a good option. Now the walnut I liked because it was taking me closer to, I had a couple pieces out that I was working on that were that really old kind of patinaed oak, and I love that look so much. So I was trying to replicate that with this. And it was a little difficult because when they do the blonde oak style, they'll like use grain filler and things in it, which makes it a little bit more difficult to kind of get the aged oak look because that has a really, really dark grain. So I did have to do several coats of this. This was a very thin, I think this would have been lovely on its own, but since I was trying to go for that darker kind of patinaed look, it did take me several coats to get this where I wanted it to be. And at that point, it was a little bit more than a stain. So this is that one coat stuff. I had it out because I did the decoupage napkins with it in my last video. And I was like, I'll just use it because it's out and it's here. It's fine. I don't know. I'm still on the fence about how much I love it. I did think it was great for decoupage because it didn't let my napkins bleed, which was wonderful, and I'm super loving that. But the thicker stuff is a little harder to like work with. It wants to leave more brush strokes. But that can be combated with water, obviously. And then I mean, I don't know, it says one coat, but I just never feel comfortable with that. So I always do two because I'm me and I like extra protection. And you just do what you want. So this has the extra coats of stain on it with extra around the edges. As you can see, like on this piece, how the edges just seem a little bit darker and grungier. That's what I tried to do with this. Anyways, I just wanted to show you. So now I'm just going to reattach the doors, get the hardware on, and then of course I have to keep going. I did seal the entire piece in the same poly just so that everything was cohesive. This is a semi-gloss. That also could be the reason why I'm not like over the moon in love with it, because I only sometimes like gloss. I usually love satin. Satin's my favorite, and then I enjoy an occasional matte. So semi-gloss is a little harder for me. And once I had that first coat on, I was like, I need something extra, because for whatever reason, sometimes I just can't stop. And this is one of those times. So I added a bit of stenciling to the side and the top. I did kind of like a fadey action, and I did a the blue that I did on the sky. So it still matched and kind of drew everything up, but that way it wasn't just these huge blank spots on the sides and the top and then a whole landscape on the front. It just seemed off to me. So I thought about just doing tape lines, and I thought that would have looked good, but then I'm like, you know what, I've got stencils. I do not have the stencil that I would have preferred because that one's at my shop in Portland. But I did have this stencil here, and it's fine. I love this stencil, but again, I would have picked a different one had I had all of my things with me for this. But I still like it. So all I'm doing is taking measurements because I want the points to end on the upper corners of the cabinet, and then I'm making sure that I know where it ends in the middle of the cabinet so that I can just match it on the other side. So that's why I'm using a ruler. If I was just doing one side, I wouldn't worry about measuring, but since I am going to be doing it to the other side, I need to make sure that they match. So that way when you look at one side, it doesn't look all wonky compared to the other one, obviously. This color is called Pismo Blue, and it is lovely. It's like a blue-gray, and it just goes so well against the warmth in the wood. It makes me happy. So yeah, I recommend this. For this, I'm doing the pouncing technique. I'm not swirling because there's no adhesive on the back of the stencil. I do like to swirl usually when I'm doing large stencils like this, but since it's not, it just has tape on it. There's no sticky anything on the back. I'm pouncing so that I don't get any bleed through. And you can see me offloading. I dip just the tips of the bristles in the paint, and then I blot them off in the lid, and then I pounce the stencil with the brush. Easy peasy. And there's just something so satisfying about pulling the stencil off and seeing the print. I love it so much. I think it's so beautiful. And then I just do the same thing to the top. I let it fade out a little bit at the point on the top so that it wasn't so harsh coming out. And then, of course, I did my second coat of poly. And then I didn't show it, but I know I've told you guys in almost every video where I'm working on something that will potentially have glasses or anything on the top of it. It makes me nervous. I always wax the top of high traffic pieces. It is such a great liquid repellent that I love having poly down for the hard base, but then I will always wax over the top of it. Oh hi, Taryn here with Elegant Upgrades, and we've got our finished piece. I didn't know what was going to happen with this. I had no intention of starting this guy. My stepdad just brought it home. It was a little blonde oak cabinet. None of us were very fond of the blonde, which is typical. It's a little retro. But it had, of course, this around the outside, and you guys know I love painting in frames. So I was just like, well, obviously I have to paint in it. It has like that mid-century style that I know a lot of people love. I am not one of those people. So it is preserved if somebody in the future, years and years from now, would like to redo it. I didn't mess with any of the veneer. It's all perfectly intact, and so it'll be good for if somebody wants to keep that, because this is really a cool cabinet. So it just has the regular tab here, but on this side it has a locking one. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. And then these slide in and out, the shelves. So I thought it would be perfect. Sorry, loud. I thought it would be absolutely perfect for the smalls that we're storing right now. I have to find another piece that's larger to put all of our stuff in so that we have it ready for shipping and it's being kept safe and clean and all that. So I was like, oh, this will be a perfect start to like get the small items like the things up here and store them in, because right now they're just on some shelves in my mom's dining room, which I'm sure she loves. But so this will be a fun thing, and I think it makes me happy to look at it. So I know that will kind of spread to other people too, hopefully. But yeah, and then I did the stain. Like, it took me 3 rounds of stain to get this look because I wanted it to look like the old oak. That I have 2 pieces out right now that I'm working on, and they both have just that really old. I love the way that looks, and so I was trying to mimic that. Wow, I was trying to mimic that look, and I think it is pretty dang close. I'm very excited about it. So it gives me all the good aged vibes, but then I've got the bright picture on the front too that just brings me joy and brightness, so it's not just dark. And then of course we did the stencil. Had I had my other stencil with me, I probably would have chosen that one, but again, we do what we can with what we have. And so this is the stencil on there. I love the color against the wood, so I would have done this exact same color but with my scrolling stencil instead of with this the lily flower one. I still love the stencil, I just wouldn't have chose it specifically for this piece. Wow. Okay, huge thank you to you guys for just going and checking out my website. I can't tell you how excited I am about it. It's just, it makes me so incredibly happy. And I got like a huge boost on my website last video because you guys just went and checked it out, and I appreciate it so much. So thank you. Thank you for all of your comments. I've been noticing that I've been getting a bunch more comments, and a lot of new subscribers are going in, and I recognize your guys' names when you pop up continuously. So I just want you to know that I so appreciate you. To everyone who's been following along and leaving comments and sharing the videos and subscribing and all the things, you guys are you're amazing. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this makeover, and I'll see you next week.